Hey there, Patrick Brewer here again, Plug-in BC's Fleets Advisor for the Clean BC Go Electric Fleets program. Today's special guest presenter is Jonathan Norris from ICF. He's going to be talking about the fleet electrification transition. Noticing a trend here? Let's hear what Jonathan has to say. Cheers.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Jonathan Norris. I'm a lead transportation and energy consultant at ICF based in Los Angeles. And I want to talk to you today about two things. First, I'm going to go through an overview of the state of the electric vehicle industry. And then second, I'd like to share some best practices for fleets that are looking to transition their current vehicles into electric vehicles. So let's get started. So I've already mentioned the first two items here on the top left corner. A couple other things that I'm going to be discussing are just some best practices for operating your electric vehicles and planning those operations once you get them into your fleet. And then an overview of a new value stream that's emerging for electric vehicle fleets, vehicle grid integration. We're going to get into that at the end of the presentation. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see there are a few main takeaways that I'm hoping that you, the viewers of this video, are going to be able to walk away with from this video with. That's going to be, first of all, that the EV market is growing, and that's making it more accessible to more and more fleets. But more options mean more deliberation by fleets and more planning to accommodate those EVs. The second thing is that EV transition is going to require really thorough planning, and experts are available to help you when you do that. The next item is that new value streams of EV ownership and operation are emerging, and we'll talk more about that here in a second. And then the last takeaway I want you to leave this video with is that incorporating electric vehicles into your operations can really be a net benefit under the right conditions. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that as well. So we're going to talk first about the state of the market for electric vehicles. On the screen here, the figure is showing the available EV models, light-duty electric vehicle models, over the last couple decades. You can see for the last decade or so that growth has been exponential. And this is tracking with what ICF knows to be true as well. We maintain an electric vehicle model library as part of our fleet transition assessment services offering. And within that EV model library, we have over 160 unique sedans, SUVs, and pickup trucks, both battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric. The story is similar with the medium and heavy duty industry as well. On this figure, you can see that there are a number of medium and heavy duty vehicle models that are becoming available on the electric powertrain side. The most rapid growth you can see is in the heavy duty truck and the medium duty truck sectors. And our EV model library is tracking over 230 battery electric and plug-in hybrid electric models. So that tracks along with that trend as well. So while EV model availability is increasing, capital costs, the purchase prices for the vehicles and the infrastructure, are still relatively high compared to a gasoline or diesel engine vehicle. However, while capital costs are high, operating costs for electric vehicles tend to be significantly lower under the right conditions than a gasoline or a diesel engine vehicle. If you look at the figure on the screen here, you can see this is showing the estimated lifetime savings from select electric vehicles versus the best-selling internal combustion engine vehicle within that same vehicle class. And so you can see that the estimated lifetime savings can range anywhere as low as $3,000 all the way to $18,000, which can be significant on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis for fleets. And so there are some ways that fleets can take advantage of their electric vehicles and ensure that operating costs maintain low. And so ways that you can do that include getting the most utilization out of your vehicles as possible, so your per mile costs remain low. Another way is to take advantage of any utility electric vehicle rate options that are available to you. Often these take the form of time of use rates so that you can charge overnight at pretty low prices. If your manufacturer offers any maintenance warranties, it's advisable that you take advantage of that as well, so you can get some coverage for the maintenance costs, which are already trending to be lower than gasoline and diesel engine vehicles as well. And then to plan ahead, and we're going to get a little deeper into that as well. And then finally, to sum up the state of the market, I just wanted to give a brief overview of infrastructure options. So fleets obviously will find out that if you're adopting electric vehicles into your operations, you're going to have to adopt electric vehicle charging infrastructure as well. The most common charging infrastructure takes the form of plug-in charging infrastructure. The table on the bottom right-hand side of the screen here shows the various types of plug-in options and standards that are suitable for different types of vehicles. But there are other charging infrastructure options available as well. Overhead charging, you can see on the top right-hand side of the screen, and then wireless or inductive charging is available. And those are going to be well suited for use cases where you need really high power, quick charging, or in the case of wireless charging, maybe if you want to offer some convenience to your customers or to your fleet of vehicles, as you can see in the parking garage example on the screen. Infrastructure comes in many different power levels, and determining what power level is best suited for you is going to take a little bit of planning. And other features of infrastructure include whether or not you want the charging infrastructure to be networked, which means that it can track usage data and consumption data, so you can make smarter decisions about how you charge your fleet. And if you want the charger to be capable of bidirectional electricity flow, if you want it to be V2G capable, that's another option out there for you as well. So with all of those options on the table for fleets, many fleets are now looking to transition into using electric vehicles rather than their current gasoline or diesel counterparts. And so what best practices can we yield from studies and from the industry so far about transitioning to an electric vehicle fleet? Well, here at ICF, when I speak to fleets that are interested in doing this transition, I emphasize that this is really a planning process. And the very first step that I recommend for any fleet that is interested in transitioning to using electric vehicles is to take stock of your priorities. This is important because there are trade-offs to nearly every decision that a fleet can make when it comes to a fleet transition. Let's take two examples into consideration. So on the screen, I have minimizing overall transition costs and then reducing transition timeline. Let's say, for example, that one fleet, its highest priority is minimizing the overall cost of transitioning vehicles over, say, a 15-year time frame. But for another fleet, maybe their top priority is reducing the timeline of the transition altogether. And that's likely to increase the total cost of that transition. So you can see how these can be at odds with each other. It's not that they're necessarily mutually exclusive, but they are interdependent. And so it's really important that fleets start this process by asking themselves, what is the why behind your transition efforts? What are you ultimately hoping to achieve by adopting electric vehicles into your fleet? And once you do that, you can set goals that are guided by those priorities. And once you set those goals, it's time to embark on the planning process. And any fleet transition plan really needs to take a deep look into all the different components and all of the related activities around the electric vehicles that you're going to be adopting into your fleet. So I've got a list here on the screen. You know, you're going to have to take a look at the vehicle side, obviously, but questions that are related to that include, what sort of electric vehicles are going to be able to do the job that you need them to do in your fleet? How many vehicles in your fleet do you want to replace? Do you want to replace all of them, or do you want to replace half of them, or somewhere in between? What infrastructure is suitable for you? What's going to work best for your use case? How are you going to finance the transition? Do you prefer owning the vehicles or leasing the vehicles? And so on and so forth. There are a number of considerations that fleets are going to run into as they plan this transition. The good thing is there are experts out there that are available to help. And increasingly, utilities and government agencies are offering these services to fleets. I've highlighted two examples here on the screen. The first is National Grid's Fleet Advisory Services Program. National Grid is a utility in the East Coast of the United States. And then the Maryland Energy Administration's Clean Fuels Technical Assistance Program, a similar fleet advisory services program, both of which are managed by ICF, where we provide these insights to fleets and we help them develop these transition plans. So the takeaway here is that it's really going to take quite a bit of work to dig deep and figure out how you want to go about transitioning your fleet to electric vehicles, if that's what you're planning on doing. But there is help out there for you. So once you've started the work of planning your transition, there are a number of operational items and considerations that you're going to find yourself looking at. I have summed this up into 4 major components of planning EV operations. So you can see this figure on the screen and the 4 circles around the center circle of EV operations. The first of which is going to be vehicle drive and duty cycles. So a vehicle duty cycle is how much you use a vehicle in a given time frame. And a vehicle drive cycle is how you use the vehicle in a given time frame. And the major takeaway here is that those facts and those considerations for your fleet are going to dictate many of the decisions you make when it comes to transitioning your vehicles and ultimately operating them on a day-to-day basis. So again, let's take 2 examples. Let's say we're looking at electrifying a refuse collection truck. A refuse collection truck or garbage truck is going to generally operate at pretty low speeds. It's going to have predictable operations on a week-to-week basis. It may idle quite a bit while it's picking up refuse. And it's going to require significant auxiliary power in order to pack down the refuse and run those packing cycles that are required to do its job. It's also going to have a back-to-base operation, which means that it's going to go out on a route, it's going to fulfill the duties of that route, and then come home and it can plug in and charge overnight. Compare that to a drayage truck. A drayage truck is a heavy-duty cargo truck that goes back and forth between ports and warehouses and distribution centers, sending cargo back and forth between the two. Drayage trucks are going to drive at average speeds when they're on the highway, but they're going to have low speeds when they're idling in a queue waiting to get into a port. They are going to have really high mileage because of all the turns that they're making and the trips they're making back and forth to those two places, ports and warehouses. But at the same time, they're going to be constrained to a geographical area because they're limited to regional operations. So while a back-to-base, it technically may be a back-to-base operation for some drayage trucks, there may be a need because of that high mileage and that high utilization for opportunity charging en route. Also, many drayage trucks are operated by small businesses that may not necessarily have a depot or a facility to go home and charge to. They may be parking outside of their house or anywhere they can find a space along the side of a road or anywhere else in public. And so the point here again is that these duty cycles and drive cycles are going to dictate a lot of the decisions you make when it comes to electrify your fleet and how you operate those vehicles. The second major grouping is infrastructure. The first bullet point here that I have is that in order to understand, first, what type of infrastructure equipment is going to be best suited for you, and second, how powerful you need the infrastructure to be, how much electricity you need to deliver to the vehicles, is going to be a function of your fleet makeup and then how you operate those vehicles. So you can see a number of different considerations here. Dwell time is how long those vehicles have available to charge. Duty cycle, we've already talked about. Drive cycle and charging schedule is what times of day are those vehicles going to be available to charge. Battery size is going to impact how long it's going to take to charge. Every electric vehicle also has a maximum power acceptance rate. So it can only intake a certain amount of power at any given time. And that's going to be a limiting factor also in impacting how long it's going to take to charge your vehicle. And then the final thing, but definitely not the least important, is scale. So how many vehicles in your fleet do you want to electrify? And how do you want to phase in that electrification process over time? That'll tell you or give you a sense of how much power you're going to need, and then when you're going to need it, and when you're going to need to have it delivered to your location. A few other things about infrastructure is that really understanding your routes is going to help you determine what sort of infrastructure you need. Many vehicles operate on a back-to-base operation. Many light-duty vehicles do this. Many medium-duty vehicles do this. But as electric vehicle applications move into heavier and heavier duty and longer range applications, there may be more need for opportunity charging en route or public charging or corridor charging in the future as we get to, let's say, long-haul trucking, for example. You also, again, want to take advantage of any utility rate structures that are available to you. This can help you lower your energy costs as you charge a fleet-wide number of vehicles. And then the final thing is to leverage energy management systems. I'm going to get more into this at the end of the presentation, but energy management can really help you smooth out the demand for power among all the vehicles in your fleet. And it can also help utilities as well. So it can be a win-win there. The third major element to planning EV operations is understanding that because electric vehicles are different than gasoline and diesel-fueled vehicles, they're going to require some adjustments to your operations. This is going to vary from fleet to fleet. It's very fleet-specific, but I've listed a few things here on the left that you might have to consider adjusting in order to accommodate the EVs and to ensure that they're going to be a net benefit for you and your operations. So EVs take longer to charge than gasoline and diesel vehicles take to fuel. So that means that you're going to have to plan for the vehicle to be on a longer charger or to get a more powerful charger so that the charging process takes less time. If you're using an energy management system, your dispatching might change. You might be used to sending out a certain vehicle at 8 in the morning to do its route. But maybe for any number of reasons, you need to wait until 10 or 11. You might need to adjust certain things to ensure that the same dispatching happens or to adjust the dispatching procedures themselves. Maintenance is definitely going to be different. The powertrains in electric vehicles are different than those in gasoline and diesel vehicles. And so you're going to need to train your maintenance technicians and you're going to have to plan for the different requirements for maintenance that these vehicles have. And then the last item I have here is stronger partner collaborations with two groups. The first is utilities. Electric vehicles use electricity as a transportation fuel, which is relatively new. And so fleets are finding that more and more collaboration with utilities can help them let the utilities know what their needs are and also help them with their infrastructure development. The second one is business-to-business relationships. There may be opportunities for fleets to collaborate, or even fleets and warehouses to collaborate, let's say for charging infrastructure, for example. If you have a route where you're going from your depot to another warehouse or distribution center, maybe you can work some deal with the warehouse to provide infrastructure for your fleet. That would take some contractual work and some consideration among the two parties, but the point is that there may be opportunities to collaborate there. And then the last point here is to be prepared to adapt. The electric vehicle industry has taken off. It's growing rapidly, which means it's still evolving and it's still changing. And so fleets should plan for now, but they should keep in mind that advancements are definitely going to come. Charging infrastructure is expected to get more powerful and it's expected to scale up. Public charging infrastructure is expected to scale up. Vehicle model availability is expected to grow. And then the capabilities and the performance of vehicle are expected to improve. We'll get into this a little bit in a second, but vehicle grid opportunities are going to emerge, and that could mean some revenue for fleets. And if not revenue, at least some cost reduction. Utility offerings and programs are starting to pop up, and they're expected to grow as well. And we may even see increased private financing for capital investments in the industry as well. So plan for now, but understand that this is a rapidly evolving market, and the technology continues to evolve as well. And so you want to be positioned to take advantage of those changes. So the last topic I'm going to speak to you today about is EVs and energy management. So I want to focus specifically on the concept of vehicle grid integration. Vehicle grid integration, or VGI, is an umbrella term that encompasses the multiple ways that vehicles can provide services to the grid, to their own fleet, and to the buildings and facilities that they're connected to. So I've got a list of different VGI types here. The first one, and the most simplest, is called V1G. This is managed or sometimes called smart charging. So smart charging refers to the process of using data and smart charging capabilities to, for example, throttle the power levels across the vehicles in your fleet. So you can charge the ones that need to be charged now and save the ones that can wait for later. The next one is vehicle to grid, which is a bi-directional flow of electricity so that fleets, instead of taking electricity from the grid to charge the vehicles, now they can also send electricity back to the grid, and they can potentially sell it to utilities if utilities have programs set up to accept the electricity. And that could provide some revenue for fleets in doing so. Vehicle to building is the same thing as vehicle to grid, but instead of sending it to the utility, you can send power to the building, and you can use your EVs as sort of a backup generator or a backup power source. And then vehicle to load is a similar concept where you can use it to power a device or any other sort of load. The Ioniq 5, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 just came out, and it has this capability. You can charge cell phones or anything that really needs a load outside of the vehicle. There are outlets inside the vehicle to do that as well. So this technology is growing, and fleets really could be in a good position to take advantage of it. So the benefits of VGI to fleets are avoided energy costs, reduced energy costs. You can smooth out the demand for power across the vehicles and across each day. It can help you optimize your charging activity so that it's more efficient. As I've mentioned a couple times, there are opportunities to earn revenue from vehicle to grid. And then you can use vehicle to building to get backup power for buildings and facilities. The benefits for utilities in a vehicle to grid setup are that they get some help in balancing the supply and demand for electricity and power on the grid. And then for fleets that are using V1G, it helps the utility have a more stable and predictable demand. And so really can be a benefit to both groups. And then the final slide here is on VGI. I want to emphasize that in order to implement even V1G, it can be a very complicated systems integration problem. Certainly solvable, but I just want to stress that it's going to take a lot of coordination, collaboration, planning, and expertise among a multitude of partners. This figure on the right here is from a demonstration project of V1G in transit buses at Santa Clara Valley Transportation Authority in San Jose, California. You can see that, so what this figure is showing is it's the schematic for the energy management platform that was set up by ChargePoint and other partners to make V1G possible for this fleet. And you can see all of the different connections and all the different pieces of software that have to communicate with each other and be integrated. And so it can be quite an engineering challenge, but potentially very rewarding for the fleets that enable it. So know that it can be a systems integration challenge, but also know that VGI is evolving, both on the technical side and the policy side. I've got an example of a California decision here you can look into if you'd like to learn more. Essentially what it says is that it is allowing vehicle to grid DC enabled charging stations to interconnect with the grid with utility permission. And so increasingly, public utilities commissions are allowing this, and then the technology is evolving as well so that it's more accessible to fleets to use. So I've covered a lot here, and it was difficult to even put all of this in a condensed set of slides. But I just want to drive home the conclusions here. So first, the EV market is growing. It's becoming more accessible to fleets. But know that more options means that you've got more on your plate to decide from. But there is help out there for you to do so. EV transition is going to require thorough planning, and there are a lot of different elements that fleets are going to have to look into and really think through as they proceed with a transition to electric vehicles. There are new value streams that are currently emerging for EVs and for fleets that use them. But with all of this, incorporating EVs can be a really significant net benefit for your fleet under the right conditions. And experts are available to help. So I hope that I've been helpful. I hope that I've given you, the viewers of this video, some more to think about. If ICF can be of any help, here's my contact information on the screen. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'd love to see what we can do for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. I'm sure the audience is going to find that information just as insightful as I did. Lots of great analytics that went into this work. And if anyone now wants to suggest future topics, you know where to reach me at fleets@pluginbc.ca. And if you're interested in the Clean BC Go Electric Fleets program, let me know. You know how to contact me. Look forward to hearing from you. Cheers and have a great day.